Continue with the 44th chapter of the book of Isaiah, Yeshayah, Perek Mem, Daled. V'ata Shema Yaakov Avdi v'Yisrael Bacharti Vo. God continues as he has in the last number of chapters to begin with Yaakov, with Israel, the two names for Bnei Yisrael. Right? Bnei Yisrael is servant, Bnei Yisrael who God has chosen. That's one of the themes of the last few chapters is the relationship between God and Israel. Ko amar Adonai osecha v'yotzrecha mi beten ya'azreka al tira avdi Yaakov v'shrun bacharti vo. This is what God said. Your Creator has helped you from the womb. Don't be scared. One of the things that's been said over and over again, must have been a time of great fear when Yeshayah was giving these prophecies. My servant Yaakov, Al Tirav Di Yaakov, and Yeshurun, another name related to the word Yisrael. You see that Yashar, both have the word like Yashar, to be straight, the Yeshurun who I have chosen. Yetzak mayim al tzamei v'nozlim al yabasha etzok ruchi al zaraecha uvirchati al tzeetzaecha. Just as I pour water on thirsty soil and rain upon dry land, so I will pour my spirit on your descendants, my blessings upon them. V'tzamchu bevein chatzir ka'aravim al yivlei mayim. They will sprout like tall grass, like willows by water. Zeh yomar la'Adonai ani v'zeh yikra b'shem Yaakov v'zeh yichtov yado la'Adonai v'shem Yisrael yichaneh. One will say, I am God's, right? La Hashem ani. And another will say, my name is Yaakov. And another will say, on his arm, will mark his arm of God. I don't know if that meant a tattoo. You see those today. People walk around with tattoos with God's name. I don't think that's what it means here. And another will adopt the name Yaakov, right? There are going to be different ways that the people, will demonstrate their connection with God, different ways that will happen. And there are all sorts of different interpretations, whether the righteous ones will do this and the wicked ones will do things that are not, but okay, either way. So first we talk about God saying to Israel, I will be with you. That's the first part of the chapter. Continuing, Kol amar Adonai melech Yisrael v'go alo, Adonai tzvaot, ani rishon v'ani acharon, umi baladai ein Elohim. Another one of the themes, the idea that God is the only God. Right? This is what the king of Israel, the redeemer of the Jewish people says, I'm first and I'm last. And there's no God but me. I was here in the beginning. I created and I'll be there in the end. I know what happened in the beginning and you will find out what's going to happen in the end. Umichamoni yikrav yagida v'yarecha v'ya'archeha li misumi am olam va'urot v'asher tavona yidulamo. Who like me can make the following prediction? Who's going to match my predictive powers? I told you about the future. Let anybody else say what's going to happen. Nobody can. Al tifchadu v'al tiro halo me'oz hishma'aticha v'gadati v'atem edai hayesh Eloah mi biladi v'ein sur bal yadati. Don't be scared. Don't be shaken. Don't worry. I've told you what's going to happen. You guys are my witnesses. There are no gods but me. There's no other rock. Right? There's no one else but me. And now the chapter is going to continue with that theme of between the idols and God. And it's really like a mockery of the idols is what we're going to see. Yotzrei fesel kulam tohu v'chamudehem bal yo'ilu. The makers of idols, right? God has said he's the Yotzer. And now we have the other Yotzer, the other former fashioner, which is the fashioner of idols. They are purposeless, right? Tohu, think back to the beginning of creation, tohu vavo. And their work is pointless. Right? These idols, they can't do anything. Right? They can't look or think. And so in a sense, they can't be embarrassed. They can't be shamed. Moshe told God, if you don't take the Jews out of the desert, if you let them die, make a nation out of me, all the other people will say the God of Israel is not the real God. And God, in a sense, whatever this means, felt shamed or challenged by what Moshe said and says, no, I'll keep my promise to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. These statues can't be shamed. Who would fashion a god or cast a statue that can do no good? Right? What's the point? It's one thing if you say, Rodin, he made the thinker, and sculptors who made very nice, they were doing it for the sense of art and the sense of beauty. But that's not what these ancient sculptors of idols were doing. They weren't doing for a sense of, oh, look at my beautiful idol. That wasn't the point. They were doing because they believed that this was something that they would worship and that would help them. We're in verse 11, Pasuk Yud Aleph, Hein kol chavei rav yevoshu v'charashim hema me'adam. Right, all the people who listen to them should be ashamed. Right, the people who make them, the idol makers, they're human beings. They're limited. Yikapsu chulam yamdu yifchadu yevoshu yachad. They should all get together. A kibbutz. We talked about in the past chapters. Kibbutz goliot. God getting the Jews from the four quote unquote corners of the earth and bringing them back to Israel. Now we're talking about assembling all of the idol worshippers, right? And let they be embarrassed. Let them be shamed. Charash barzel me'atzad ufaal ba'pecham uva makavot yitzrehu. These craftsmen, these charash, these people who make these idols with iron and with their different tools, and they work over it and they fashion it by hammering it. Vifalu bezra kocho, right, and with their strength of their arm, they're working on it. Gamra v'en koach lo shatamayim vayiach. They work, right? They work so hard they can go hungry because they'll lose their strength. Charash eitzim natakav. The craftsman now, that was the craftsman of the people who were using iron and tools, and now we're talking about the one who's using wood. Natakav. They measure a line, right? They're getting out their level. Yitarehu ba sered yaseu bamak tsuot uvam chuga yitaarehu. And they make a shape with their stylus, and they use different tools. V'yaseu ketavnit ish kteferet adam lashevet bayit. And they give it like the form of a person, right? They give it sort of this human beauty that it will sit in their home as this statue. Lichrotlo arazim, and in order to build this wooden idol, they cut down cedar trees. And of course, you have to think that that's in a sense a contrast to the Beit HaMikdash, which cedars from Lebanon were used to come and build. Vaikach tirza va'alon vayametz lo ba'atzeyar nata oren v'geshem yigadel. Right, so they chop down the cedars, and they take all sorts of different other trees such as oaks, and they set them aside, and they plant, and then they make, they hope that rain will make more trees grow. V'hayal adam liva'er v'ikach mehem v'yacham af yasik v'afal lachem af yif'al el v'yishtachu asafesel v'yiskad lamo. And what do? Right? The same wood that used to build their idols, it's also used to burn fire. Right? You take the wood, one piece of wood, you go and you build an idol with it, or some sort of, and the next piece of wood you take and you pour it in the fire to a person to warm himself and to make bread. So it's ridiculous. You could take, right? Imagine you're blindfolded. Which piece of wood are you going to take? With the one on the right, the one on the left? You pick one, and that one's going to be your idol. That one is a god who controls certain powers of this earth and the universe, and the other one you're going to take and throw in the fire. Right? That seems to be something you should bow down to. That's something that has eternal special power. Makes no sense. Continuing verse 16. Chetio saraf mo'esh al chetio basar yochel yitzlet sali v'yispa af yachom v'yomer ha'ach hamoti ra'iti ur. Part of it burns in the fire, right? And part of it he roasts his basar, he roasts meat, not his own flesh, but food for dinner. He eats it, and then he tastes it, and then he's sava. He's satiated. He's eaten his food, and further, we talked about this in the beginning. Or he takes that wood and he puts it on the fire, or maybe the fire that was used first to make his food now also warms him up. And the rest, what does he do? He goes and he uses it to make his own god. So right before I said, blindfolded, which one is he going to take? So here it's a different term, right? You have 10 pieces of wood. You think you're going to need all the 10 pieces of wood. You put in 5, you put in 6, you put in 7. The 7 pieces is enough to cook your thin piece of meat and to warm you overnight in the cold desert air. And I got 4 pieces of wood left. What am I going to do? I'll go and I'll make a god for them. Vayishtachu Vayitpalalu elav, vayomar hatzileni ki eliata. And what does he do? He bows down to it, he prays to it, and he cries out to it and begs it, save me, for you are my God. Lo yadu v'lo yavinu. They have no knowledge. They have no thinking, no thought. Kitach mer'ote nehem me'askil libotam. Right? They can't see anything. They have no minds. They can't think. V'lo yashiv el libo v'lo dat v'lo tfuna le'mor chetzios harafti b'mo eish v'afafiti al gechalav lechem etzla bas v'ochel v'yitro l'toeva asel levul eitz eskod. And the person who makes this idol doesn't even for a moment think to say, part of it I burned on the fire, part of it I used to bake bread, and I roasted meat. Right? What should I do with the rest of it? Should I make an idol with it? Should I make a block of wood? It's like, just think about it. It's a piece of wood. It's not an idol. Ro'eh, a fair, a lave, hutal, hitahu. Right? The one who is, he's a shepherd of ashes, in a sense, is what he's saying. A deluded mind has led him astray, right? But God is known as the Ro'eh, the shepherd. Moshe, the other David, shepherds to shepherd the flock. This guy is a ro'eh, he's a shepherd of ashes. But he can't save himself. He can't admit cognitive dissonance. He can't say that this is a fraud. Maybe because it's parnasa to build idols, or maybe because he has so much invested in it, or whatever it is. But think, right, the whole idea, 50 of this is going to go to build, to warm me up and to build, put a fire for me. And the other 50 is going to go towards building a God. Zachar, in verse 21, pasuk Zachar ele Yaakov Yisrael ki avdiata. So remember, Jacob and Israel, that you are my servant. Yitzarticha eved li ata Yisrael lo tinasheni. I fashioned you. Right, get the comparison. God is the Yotzer. We mentioned this earlier, as opposed to the person who's Yotzer, who's forming the idol. I fashioned you to be my servant. Don't forget me. Another pasuk that we know very well from Slichot and from the high holiday services. I will wipe away your sins like a cloud. Right, a cloud is here now, and then it's gone. Don't see it anymore. Your transgressions will disappear like mist. Return to me, because I will redeem you. Right? God saying to the Jewish people, you want me to do this? Shuva Elai, come back to me. We'll have another verse later. Shuva Elai, right? Ve'ashuva Aleichem, right? Much later in the Tanakh. Return to me, and I will return to you. God says, I'll redeem you, but you have to you have to do something in the process. Ranu shamayim ki asa Adonai ariu tachtiot eretz v'tzchu arim rina ya'ar v'chol eitzbo ki ga'al Adonai Yaakov v'Yisrael yitzpa'ar. So scream out heavens, right? Sing, for God has done something. Shout, the depths of the earth. Scream out, sing with joy, mountains, forests with all your trees, because God has redeemed Yaakov and returned glory, Yitzpa'er, Pa'er's glory, back to Israel. And the whole world, right, should be singing. Why? Because the world, the earth, the mountains, in a sense, know who was their fashioner, who was their former, who was their creator. It wasn't that wooden idol or that iron idol or the stone idol. It was God. And therefore, they should be singing out that God has redeemed Israel. Ko amar Adonai go'olecha v'yotzrecha mi batem. Anochi Adonai oseh kol noteh shamayim levadi roka haaretz me'iti. So God, again, the Redeemer of Israel, the one who fashioned you from the womb, what does he say? I am the God who made you. I am the God who stretched out the heavens by myself. I'm the one who spread out the earth. I'm the one who created the earth. Mefer otot badim v'kosmim yeholel, meshiv chachamim achor v'da'atam yisakel. Right? Who annuls the omens of the idol worshippers and makes fools of them who praise, the diviners, who turns back the wisdom of sages and makes nonsense of their knowledge. Mekim dvar avdo v'atzat malachav yashlim haomer liYerushalayim tushav ula'arei Yehuda tibanena v'charvoteha akomein. Right? Who is the one who does that? But at the same time, gives credence, confirms the word of his servant, and fulfills the prediction of my messengers, of the prophets. I am the one who says Jerusalem will be inhabited and the towns of Judah will be rebuilt, and I will restore their ruined places, right? This is again, the Israelites the Jews are destroyed, and God is saying, no, I'm predicting. I told you, I was there at the beginning. I told you what's going to happen. And all these fools who are worshiping their idols, they can't see anything. Homer letzulach harbiv and aratayich ovish. I, who said to the deep, dry up. I will dry up your floods. Haomer la koresh roi v'chol hefzi yashlim v'lomar liyushalayim tibane v'echal tifazeh. I'm the same one who said to Cyrus, he is my shepherd, he shall fulfill all my purposes. He shall say about Jerusalem that it will be rebuilt and the temple, you will be founded again. And so here we see, we've had a number of different verses over the last number of chapters where Yeshayah has talked about God's servant. And we've debated, who is this servant? One opinion, the Mashiach; another opinion that it's Yeshayah himself who's predicting these things. There's even an opinion that when it talks about the servant going into to exile, it's sort of like God is going into exile. But one of the other ones is that it was Koresh, it was Cyrus, who Persian king who defeated the Babylonians. Jews, of course, were exiled. Temple was destroyed by the Babylonians, and he gives permission to the Jews to rebuild their temple. As if you want to see evidence to it, although it's not the one specifically to the Jews, there's an object may have mentioned at one point called the Cyrus cylinder. It's in the British Museum, and it's where Cyrus tells, and I forget which one of his nations he's speaking to, that they can rebuild their temple. Cyrus he had a smart foreign policy. He cared about tax dollars. He didn't care about religion. He believed in freedom of religion. And he knew that if we were going to be allowed to worship our gods, we probably wouldn't complain a little bit if we had to pay a little bit more in taxes. And it's called, again, if you want to look it up, the Cyrus cylinder. And here we have Koresh. The difficulty here, of course, you could say it's predictive, it's prophetic. Yeshayah is speaking about Koresh, about Cyrus. Yeshayah lives about 175 years before Cyrus, before this all happens. And that's, of course, part of the reason why, according to many, the second half of the book is not written by the same Yeshayah who writes the beginning of the book. Just to mention that idea, it's something that, of course, is discussed by many in regards to this chapter and these predictive prophecies that seem to come after a complete and utter destruction, and not with the Jews still living in Yerushalayim, even if most of their people have been dispersed.